Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Evolution Security Podcast. I am finally back after missing 2 episodes. I am sorry to my brother for leaving him hanging, and I am bummed that I was not here for 2 kick-ass shows. But Eric, I'm glad to be back here with you, man. How you doing?
Doing great, man. It is good to have you back, man. It's about time you get off playing hooky, man.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me, Aaron. It seems like, we had double the downloads these last 2 shows. I'm not sure why.
Bro, here, let me check our freaking statistics here. I'm going to our host site right now, and Eric, I see the opposite. I'm kidding. I didn't look it up. Quit being a punk.
No, man, it's always a bummer not having you on the show. Literally, man. I like doing the shows anyway. We had some killer guests. But yeah, man, this is one of our hangouts, even if it's virtually. So yeah, man, I was certainly bummed, but you had important things going on. No factor to
Sure, man. Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad to be back. Well, bro, we are here for another Gear and Mindset show. And speaking on the mindset side, you want to jump into some accountability real quick, bro? I'm going to hand it off to you.
Sure, buddy. So I kind of told you offline, that again, our audience members, some may have heard, I re-injured my back. I think this is, since we've been doing this show, this is, I think, the 3rd time. I think I'm getting the better help that I need right now. And also Aaron, there's movement patterns that I need to do better. I think I need to be number one, when I'm doing squats, I'm probably going a little deep, so I think that's causing me some of my herniation issues. And, just changing the way even I do abs and things like that cause some flexion that's unnecessary. I'm not doing a lot of sprints on my rower anymore, which adds a lot of flexion. Right now my rower is used for fairly easy, aerobic cardio. So I'm getting my sprints and anaerobic stuff out of my Echo bike.
So, bro, are you saying that you're keeping some movements that were hurting you on, rowing was giving you some issues? Is that what you're saying?
So, Aaron, I don't know that those things were causing, because for that, I'll just tell everybody what happened. I ruptured my L3, L4 disc. And so it's not nearly to the degree of pain that I had when I ruptured my L5 S1. And that helped. I mean, I was on crutches or some form of a cane for, months. So this is, I'm 3 months in this one, and I'm almost back to fairly normal training. I'm just a lot lighter, which I'll kind of talk about here in a second. But anyway, yeah, Aaron, I think there's just times where even some of those movements, I was probably overtraining on the flexion side of things. And I'm just going to try to, eliminate some of that for a while. And again, strengthening those muscles back, through lifting and proper rehab. So yeah, with that said, Aaron, one of the big issues is, man, I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time on the mats the last few months. Very little time on the mats. And so I'm back to normal training. I'm not sparring right now, but the cool news is that you recall, Aaron, myself and Justin Ball were the two main coaches for Daybreakers, the 0600 morning class at my gym,
which I hope to get to one of these days.
Man, I that would make my year, man. I'd love that, and you'd have a blast. So Justin's got a lot of things going on family wise, and he's got an injury he's dealing with, and he just got some different focus right now. So when he's making it to jiu-jitsu, it's in the evenings, And so I decided that I was going to start Daybreakers back up and I would just be the primary coach. And Aaron, the cool part about it is, when you're sharing those duties and, you change the schedule on and off, it, Justin and I would kind of talk on what our focus was, and I would try to double on that or he would double on myself, but still we're different coaches. So being a primary coach for right now, I get to make the focus, and so I can kind of draw out, over 2, 3, 4 weeks on what I want to focus on for the folks that are showing up to the class on what I feel is needed for them. And frankly, man, I get to focus on some stuff I want to do too. So yeah, that's been really cool. Started that up a couple of weeks ago, and I've really been enjoying that. Shout out to some of the folks that have really been hitting it hard. Megan, um, Dane, Jacob, and Rob. All of them have been showing up every class, and of course I've have more folks showing up too, but man, they've been super consistent. And Dane is a team sergeant in third group. So man, he's getting after it, tip of the spear. So he's newer to jujitsu, but like most of those guys in SF, man, they're smart and intelligent and humble people. And he's got an infectious attitude. So I'm digging working with him. And then one of the other SF guys, he's actually going through school right now for an 18 series, and that's Jacob. So shout out to him as well. But man, I think, man, honestly, I'm gonna call. Oh, one other thing. Sorry, this is some accountability on the bad side. I have to admit, Aaron, I haven't shot live fire in 2 weeks, man, because I've been doing a lot of focus on this. But man, I only live 15 minutes from the range, so man, I really have no excuse. So I'm just going to slap myself here a little bit. But yeah, I'll pick up this weekend. Probably not. Probably I will be. But I will say this: I've still been dry firing essentially every day, so I'm not losing any skill.
Well, it's funny. I've been able to shoot a little bit, and I may talk about that a little bit later, but it's not pistol. So it's funny, Eric. I was kind of giggling inside as I'm listening to you start out, and you're talking about your injury, and we have kind of been think back over the last few years on our podcast with you having a couple of like you said, I believe 3 now injuries to your back, and then from before we started the show, I had my issue, severe stenosis going on in my neck, and I finally got it fixed last May, and symptoms are basically all gone from that. Now it's just the strength issues that I'm dealing with. But then before that, I had my eyes fixed, and it's like I feel like I've been able to have like take 2 steps forward here and there, and a step back.
Which we have to admit, that's the way it goes. In many
it
cases.
is, man.
Periodization is a part of this path, and frankly, as you get older, it's probably a little more pronounced, the periodization piece. Yep.
Well, and something I may talk about later or on another show, but so I'll circle around to this. So I was doing some work out in the country, some nice manly work with a chainsaw, clearing some land and etc. And I came away with some tennis elbow, and I know there's a tendonitis term for that. I'll be honest, I don't remember what it is. I'll just call it tennis elbow. But of course, everybody knows that's a pretty bad. It can be a pretty bad tendon issue, soft tissue injury, and so that happened about a month and a half ago. And for a couple of weeks, I was able to do jujitsu and shoot. I even shot a competition and did fine. Actually, it was my best competition I've ever shot.
Man,
And
that's awesome.
that following week, I went to a great jujitsu session at my gym training ground, and Becky and I worked together and had a great time. But dude, I injured it even worse. So
And this was
ever
when,
since,
Aaron?
what's that?
This was when you
This was
re-injured it
probably
worse?
about a month ago
Okay.
when I
Okay, Aaron, I
re-injured it.
misunderstood. I do remember that. Yep.
So I say all that to say that this has kept me from shooting pistol, dry firing pistol. I can't lift weights. I cannot do jujitsu because, if it was a leg injury or something like that, I could, or say even my neck, right? It I could do jujitsu, but I can't. So I finally made it back to class last night, and I just watched. I just had to be there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
God, and I even had my gi on. I did a few little technique things, but the problem is that what really solidified this injury was jujitsu. And so I've basically just been trying not to use my arm at all. And so now I'm finally, a couple weeks, actually last week, I finally hunkered down and said, okay, I got to go see my physical therapist about this. So I went and saw her. And Eric, have you ever heard of dry needling?
I have. I've not done it, but I've heard good things about it.
So what it is, so long story short, she's helping me using that therapy and some massage therapy, breaking up fascia and giving me a few exercises and stuff and stretches. But so Eric, what long story short, dry needling is kind of like acupuncture.
Yep. Yep.
But what it is that I don't know how long ago she explained it to me, but at one point they were doing some studies. They realized that muscles were loosening up when they would inject some sort of medicine, and in these trials they realized that the exact same effect was occurring with placebo.
Yeah, I did read that, Aaron. Incidentally enough, now you're drawing my excuse me, jarring my memory. I did read that about that some time ago. Yeah, go ahead.
So what the deal is, when they place the needle into the muscle, it does something, wakes up the muscle where it responds by loosening up. And she explained it that it's like one, placement of this needle will do like, several hours of massage. It's something like that.
Oh,
In other
wow.
words, no true quantification there, but in other words, it does a lot of work real fast. But I will tell you this, I'm a wimp about needles, dude. And when she was putting that in, I thought, this isn't going to be a big deal, but, and then she poked it in there, and, I thought that feels kind of deep. And then I was like, okay. And then the next time it's like, okay, that doesn't feel all that great. I said, man, that feels really deep. She goes, yeah, I'm going down to your bone. I'm using your bone to make sure I'm going where I need to go. It's a real thin needle, but man, when I'm feeling that kind of going that deep in there, it's like, okay, here I am. I'm like a little kid here getting poked by a bunch of needles here.
Well,
But long story,
Aaron, go ahead. I'll let
I
you
was just going to
finish, and I'll
say,
tell
I,
my
I
story in a
went
minute.
to an appointment today, and once she was massaging and doing this thing with this little scraper thing for fascia, etc. And I said, okay, so you don't need to do the needling today? She goes, no, we'll see if we need to do that next time. I said, okay, I'm not disappointed.
Yeah,
But
it's funny, Aaron. I make no buts about this. I call it. In these days, it's kind of one of the fountains of youth. Is I've talked about this on the show before. I'm on testosterone treatment, and they're pretty big needles because they're intermuscular.
mhm.
And so, man, I don't know how long I've been doing it now. At least 3 years. And every time I have to give myself a shot every 2 weeks, and it's not that big of a deal. But sometimes I'm like, and I'm tired of giving myself this shot, damn it. And I have a reminder on my phone that pops up every 2 weeks, the day before, and I'm like, okay, I got to give myself my shot tomorrow afternoon. So I'm sitting here. I know it is silly, and I'm sure there's uh, audience members out there that do this as well. Craig, we talked about it. Brian sometimes gives him his shots, and I thought lately, I'm like, man, I might start having my wife give me shots every now and then just for a break. And then
Yeah.
when I talked to her about it, she's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that, And I said, yeah, you probably get scared, and instead of just going right in as you should, because if you just keep the needle moving, it's not a big deal whatsoever. Sometimes you might yank on a nerve or something like that every now and not a big deal. But I joked with said, yeah, you're gonna start sticking it in and then just start poking me a bunch of times like a tattoo. That won't. Anyway, enough about that. That's kind of funny. It just incidentally just had to do that just a couple hours ago. So kind of tails in with yours, man.
Well, and I'll repeat, and this is not an exaggeration, the worst part, and I'm talking about even after surgery, from a pain standpoint, when I had my neck worked on, the worst pain was when they messed up the IV in my flipping hand. I mean, grinding
Bro,
in
that
my.
is that tells me that, and I know you've spoke about how awesome a surgeon your doctor is or was,
Yeah.
and that says a lot, man. Because
Well, and I'll tell you this: he had nothing. It's a pretty big a back hospital or surgical hospital. It was the nursing team. I can't remember how many people he said were on my surgical team. Let's just say roughly it was 20 people. But when I didn't mean to get off on this tangent, but yeah, the first nurse that jacked that up, time to go ahead and redo it, the supervisor came in and did it because I was not all that happy. Again, how do we get off on this, Eric? We got some important stuff to talk about. So, Eric, got just a little. Again, this is a gear and mindset show, so we need to talk about a little bit of gear. I would say the first thing I want to mention, Eric, and I'll tell you, I think it's one of the coolest things on planet Earth. If, like me, you thought it was a better idea to get your gun safe with one of those mechanical dial locks, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. But I also limped by on that thing for 8 years, right? Well, finally, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I decided I would go ahead and finally get a digital lock that, of course, has a key code. But the thing I love about it is it scans your fingerprint. Just go in there and beep, open that puppy up, right? And every time I do it, I said, "Honey, did you hear that? Oh yeah, that's awesome." We keep talking about how awesome that safe
Well,
lock
Aaron,
is.
my safe has got a mechanical lock.
Lame.
But
You
what
need to
I'll
get
ask
you
you
need
though,
to get with the 90s, bro.
what? No kidding, that is '90s technology. My safe's cheaper than yours, but anyway, Aaron. So what is the backup for that though? I really honestly don't know. Is there a
So
backup to it, or what happens if the battery power runs down?
interesting enough, bro. The battery comes out of the front.
Okay.
You change that. So let me say real quick. So it's the Secure RAM BSL 0601. Again, that's a biometric lock, and I paid $256 for it. And man, it's some of the best $260 I've spent. But yeah, the battery comes out I think it's at the bottom or something.
Oh, that makes sense, Aaron. I
Hmm.
maybe there was something in me thought that maybe it was an internal mechanism.
Yeah,
Maybe I'd heard maybe there are safes that have it internal.
now
So yeah,
we'll say this:
I show
in
myself ignorant, but that's okay.
installing it, you do have to be careful that because there is a lockout fail safe that if there's enough pressure put on the actual handles against a lock, there's this little mechanism that is spring tension that locks down and it locks everything down.
Mm.
So yeah, there's the fail safe on that end. But yeah, that was one thing I was glad to know that, yeah, you don't have to take this daggum lock off because that would stink, buddy. It took me a little more time to install it than I thought it would.
Well,
And
Aaron, I'll be honest, and this
I'm
is
not as
just
handy as you are.
well, I'm not that much more. I mean, I guess that I am pretty mechanical, but what I was thinking was it was internal, like inside the safe, like
I
maybe.
see.
And I think there has been some safes like that,
Yeah.
and I think that's what my brain connected to. But cool, man, that does sound
Well,
awesome.
I
I
mean,
need to see if there's one for mine.
just a good way to think of it, right, is higher end gear, right? Usually has a lot of standard type gear that the company outsources in their standard sizes and everything, right?
Yeah,
So just like that, I mean, to me, it's like how every guitar uses a quarter inch jack and plug to plug into the amp. I mean, all these decent safe companies have the same sizes of locks, basically.
yeah,
So
cool.
and it was just finding the right one for the budget I wanted to pay, and one that had good ratings, and that one certainly did. And it helps that Liberty actually recommended it too. So that is what I have is a Liberty safe. Now, Eric, do you remember? I'm going on another tangent here, but I guess Liberty Safe is owned by some group that in the background are kind of left wingers.
I saw something about that, Aaron. And
Dude,
I can't
and
say that I pinpoint the information, but I did see something like that.
they were getting some flack for that,
Yeah.
and then somebody sent out a meme with what is his name, the guy that the transgender guy that was doing ads for Bud Light,
Yeah.
Darren Mulvaney or something like that.
Mulvaney, I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, there was a funny meme that a picture of him with a couple of Liberty safes full of Bud Light.
That's funny. Man, I hadn't looked at what their market share is right now, but man, I bet you those CEOs are like, okay, any kind of marketing change like that, your ass is gonna clear through us. I mean, for that woman to, essentially, we talked about this, I think, on here, but I mean, to go against completely the market, the main market of their beverage.
Yeah.
I mean, how arrogant of that woman, man. Well, she had to pack her gear. She had several boxes one day handed to her to take her crap out of there and get the hell out.
Yeah,
Good riddance, man.
that was certainly a weird deal. Well, okay, so one more thing. Let's get back on track here. I just thought of that funny freaking meme. You should
You
look it up
started it.
sometime.
I think I
So
saw it. Yep.
so before Christmas, Eric, we gave some Christmas ideas, right?
Hmm.
And one of the ones I gave was because I was so pissed off about all my Arc'teryx Gore-Tex gear falling apart. So I got what I suggested to everybody to check out is this Carhartt Storm Defender lightweight jacket. You can see, looks
Hmm.
pretty cool. On the surface, it's like Gore-Tex, right? But it's their proprietary, I guess you would call it, Storm Defender material.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I'll first give the fact that, man, it does keep you dry, nice and dry. I've needed it a few times and it beads up really, really nice. But the cons I'm going to say are this liner in here that is, of course, a part of keeping you pretty dry in this thing. Number one, when you get out in the wind, that wind hits that liner and it's flipping cold.
Really?
And see, that is one of the things. So now I'm going to give some praise towards the Gore-Tex people, that you can wear a Gore-Tex jacket as a jacket, and it keeps you okay warm. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that right off the bat with this, that you really need to be in. You need to have a layer underneath it if it's a cooler day, or if it's a just a regular day when it's just rain. No big deal. But yeah, so there's one side that I give towards Gore-Tex and those Arc'teryx jackets that I still have, actually. And then the other thing is, it doesn't breathe as well. So this is I think it was about $100. No big deal. Man, I like this jacket a lot. $100 to keep me dry.
Sure.
I still do not regret it. But there is one reason that Gore-Tex jackets are pretty dang expensive. That material is pretty darn good.
Yep.
For when it works.
Yep.
But I will deal with the cons of this jacket just because it's going to keep me dry, and I don't mind rebuying one of these $100 jackets if it doesn't work for a long time, instead of replacing a $500 Arc'teryx jacket every 5 years, right?
Yeah,
which seems to be about as long as Gore-Tex stays working and not wetting out or even freaking delaminating. So I just wanted to give, I said I had one of these on the way. I got one, and I wanted to give a fair appraisal of it. I really like it. It's a good looking jacket. It's made well, and it does keep you dry, but there's those few things, that make you realize sometimes why some people do pay more for those other jackets. Just not me anymore.
So this was a report from the field.
Report from the field. For sure. Just layer up underneath it and expect maybe to get a little bit, a little bit hot under it. Well, bro, I think it's time to talk about some important stuff that may tick us off a little bit, but this is a really important topic, especially seeing that I have started shooting a lot more rifle ammo.
Yep. Same here, brother.
Getting back into shooting carbine. Now, Eric, so I'm sure a lot of our listeners are aware that Lake City Ammo, that makes a lot of ammo that we actually do buy, right? Like, for instance, I believe they manufacture the awesome Black Hills stuff.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's other brands that they make ammo
and
for.
And I'll just straight up say it, man. They make bulk 193, and then they package it sometimes in different manufacturers' boxes, and of course the 855 green tip. So those are the two main bulk ammo that you get that Lake City produces. Is the ball one? Excuse me, I was about to say one. Ball 55 grain full metal jacket, which is M193, and then also the 62 grain, green tip, M855. That's what the bulk of this market share is for civilians. Same stuff that the Army gets.
So, in a nutshell,
or the military, I should say,
Lake City has basically been the manufacturer that supports the U.S. Army with ammunition for small arms since the 40s.
Yep.
Now, it's not a government entity, but it is. What I do not know the full ins and outs of the corporate structure of an ownership, but just suffice it to say that the Army requires the federal government, with their contract with Lake City, requires them to have a capacity to produce 1.6 billion cartridges a year. Right? Let's key in on that. That the contract requires that they have that capacity, right? Just in case we're going to war, etc. There's some major supply buildup, etc. Now, to maintain that capacity, Eric, the military doesn't buy that many rounds a year.
Right.
Okay. So to keep the doors open, to keep the capacity going, which, right, Eric, capacity means that you've got the building space, you've got the lines, you've got the employees trained,
Exactly.
you have the management experience, you have everything going that needs to continue. We're talking about capacity.
Yeah, lines running that are maintained by the maintainers, all of that. Yep.
That doesn't occur. You cannot maintain capacity online without selling the stuff that you build. So to keep that capacity available, Lake City has essentially, they produce about 2-to-1 civilian to military ammunition supplies. Okay, let's repeat that. 2-to-1 on the civilian side of the market. Again, and of course, so we're saying that's because they need to keep that capacity. Either they have half the capacity, or actually that would be a third of the capacity, right? So what we're getting around to talking about is in September of last year, we had a nice new little Orwellian department created and started under the Biden administration called the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And the director of that entity is Stephanie Feldman. And of course, her boss is supposed to be Kamala Harris. And then there's, of course, a few other individuals that are within that department or cabinet, I guess is what you call it, cabinet office. So number one thing, so this is a letter from Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York. And I'm just going to start right out by saying, Eric, as if Letitia James and the other, I believe, 20 or 16 or so attorneys general
I think 19
in the United States just,
Yep.
came out and, naturally just, they've got this new Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We need to get involved and we need to contact them right away. And so we've got this letter here.
And you aren't saying there's collusion, are you?
Oh, no. Oh,
Go
no. Not at all. That this wasn't something that the White House called Letitia James and said, hey, you need to come up with this letter and act like you're sending it to us.
And here's all the wording. This is all
here's what you need to sign here, okay? And you need to get, the usual suspects. I'll just start out and start reading some of this, bro. So this is, it's to Stephanie Feldman, and that's as the director of White House Office and Gun Violence Prevention, and it is regarding manufacture and sale of military-grade ammunition at the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant and its use in mass shootings. Director Feldman, We write on behalf of the states of New York, Arizona, California, Connecticut, Delaware, the District of Columbia. Is that a state, Eric?
Nope.
Long story short, I'm going to skip to this. It's multiple, typical anti-Second Amendment states. And they're writing, quote, to express concern about recent reports that billions of rounds of military-grade ammunition manufactured at the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant have been sold on the commercial market.
So that's
Let's
new
back that up,
information,
Eric.
right?
That's what I was saying. After decades and decades of them having to keep the doors open by selling this to civilians.
Yeah.
We've got recent reports. It's funny how they are able to pull that one over a lot of people. So it's been sold on the commercial market, again, quote, leading to their use in many of the most tragic mass shootings in recent history. We ask your office to conduct an investigation into the contracting processes that led to this situation and take action to ensure that military grade and military subsidized ammunition stays out of the civilians' hands. Again, according to recent reports, the ammunition made at Lake City for our military has been sold to civilians in mass quantities, leading to these bullets being used in mass shootings. I'm kind of repeating part of it. They're starting back over here. Let's see here. Lake City rounds have become the ammunition of choice for use in mass shootings, including, and they name off the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, and the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And, of course, the shooting in Buffalo, the supermarket Buffalo in Buffalo, New York. And this is funny they say this, Eric. The shooter in the Buffalo Massacre discussed Lake City ammunition as the best, quote, the best barrier penetration ammo I can get. So we think this guy, this psychopath that goes on this rampage is talking about Lake City ammo, Eric?
Right. And I am curious if that's true or not. I don't know, but
I'm making assumptions there.
I find it unlikely, but maybe he did. But Aaron, one of the things that when I read that, again, we do not expect psychopaths to know ballistics and bullet performance like we do, but also this is part of they're trying to make that point here. And and we'll discuss it a little further. I'm sure you got some points about this, but this continued use of the description of military grade ammunition. Well, frankly, both of the majority of the ammo that I mentioned before, M193, is a decent performer. I prefer it over M855, or excuse me, M855, the green tip stuff. I think the 55 grain stuff yaws a little better, and I think it has better terminal performance. But anyway, that's water under the bridge. But the main point is they keep speaking as though military grade ammunition is so much more violent and dangerous than anything you can find on the civilian market. We know that we own multiple purely civilian 223 or 5.56 ammo that has much better penetration, than that. And penetration isn't always my concern. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's playing games with words and sensationalizing their verbiage in this to make it sound like it is a tragedy that this ammo is sold on the market. But go ahead, Aaron.
Well, so let me read this part here, and we'll make a fine point on this. So they say again, back to this letter from Letitia James, quote, ammunition from Lake City is manufactured for military use and does not belong in our communities Federal courts have repeatedly noted the military nature of 5.56 millimeter rounds, which are used in military issued rifles such as the M16, military, etc., and the ammunition specifically manufactured for them should be limited to military use. Even if military grade, let's say that, even if military grade ammunition were appropriate for civilian market, its sale to private parties should not be subsidized with taxpayer dollars. So, of course, what they are saying, again, Eric, is that trying to conflate in people's minds that normal 5.56 millimeter ammunition is not what we should be able to have. When think about that, it should only be used by the military.
So
Wait a minute. Right
yeah,
now, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's 100% legal for civilians to own.
absolutely.
But in this letter, that they are intimating that it's some illegal loophole.
Yeah, absolutely. They are. That's what they're intimating for certain. And here's what I think is kind of hilarious in my mind is how it says that the private party should not be subsidized by taxpayer dollars. So let me make this point. It is not that the taxpayers are subsidizing it for civilians, it's that the civilian market is subsidizing a much lower price for the DOD and subsidizing the fact that ammunition is available for the DOD. So,
Yes.
and we know they're not concerned about taxpayers. They're just
Give a
concerned that
shit
taxpayer
about
dollars
tax.
come into the coffers so that they can use it to buy votes. But anyway, I digress.
Well, long story short, we can button this specific thing up, but this is, of course, their aim here. In the short term, we ask your office to investigate the contracting and manufacturing practices that led to so many billions in military grade rounds being sold in our communities and to issue a public report with recommendations on how to end the diversion of military ammunition into civilian hands. Dude, what literal lies and
Absolutely.
okay, half truths. In the long term, we ask the White House to ensure that future production contracts prohibit the sale of military weapons and ammunition to civilians. So it's as if they didn't know it's been going on for decades and decades. Selling it to civilians is the only way the capacity is available for the military.
Well, so a few things, Aaron. Number one, so their intent, this is what they claim, because this is, the White House, their verbiage, the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Okay. So their job is supposedly prevention, right? But we know it's about taking Second Amendment rights away is their main intention. But let's say if it is prevention, right? So how is taking 40% of the 5.56 or 5.56 market away from civilians? How is it going to prevent a damn thing? Because let's face it, if a psychopath is wanting to go and commit murder, a mass murder, then they're just going to buy more expensive ammo.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. Is this isn't going to prevent anything. So the other point I was going to make is that what is the real intent, right? We know what the real intent is. It's to infringe on our liberties to be able to shoot for fun, to be able to have ammo for our own protection or limit that, to be able to train, again, well regulated in the vernacular of the 18th century in the Second Amendment. means well trained, prepared. So essentially, I argue that if you try to take away ammo sources, it's not just that you're taking arms away. If you're taking away ammo sources, you're infringing on the Second Amendment. That's one of the points I was going to make. I mean, your thoughts on that piece?
Oh yeah, 100%. We sound like a broken record, I know, when it comes to this. None of this is ever what they say it is. They didn't just find this out. There's billions, again, their own admission, billions and billions and billions of these rounds. It's like any of this stuff. It's not ever going to stop a crime, but it will make our ammo go up more. And like you said, make it harder. If they can't ban if they can't ban AR-15s, well, they'll just keep chipping away at other things that they believe they can get away with. And this is just another one. And this isn't the first time they've done this. There was a dust up with Lake City. Forgive me, bro. Let's just say it was in the last 4 to 6 months. I don't think it was any longer than 4 months ago that they were giving. Hey, I know for sure it was slightly after the attacks in Israel when they started talking about this. Yeah. The White House was talking about this. So again, as if they didn't print this up and ask all these 20 anti-gun attorneys general to sign the freaking letter. Oh, look at this letter we just received.
just like the letter against parents, was that in Virginia where parents were going in and protesting the school boards, and lo and behold, it does appear that it was the White House that actually contacted, and forgive me, I'm a little half-cocked here, who they had contacted. Oh, it was one of the union leads that sent this letter in for the education union leads. It sent this letter, and essentially it sounds like that the letter was written by the White House to me. Again, maybe that's the case, maybe not. It certainly seems that way. At a minimum, it seems that the White House, manufactured.
Oh, there was some that one letter you're talking about, or you're talking back about this Lake City deal?
No, I'm just talking about, this sounds like the same type of modus operandi of when those parents were being harassed by the FBI, essentially by the behest of the White House. Mm-hmm. And so that sounds, it sounds like a similar tactic. But
bro,
man, what do you think, man? We were trying to keep this at 45 minutes. We went a little over. We're trying to keep these gear and mindset shows a little shorter at times, but yeah, man, this has been fun.
Oh yeah. I do want to know how many, now this is just a rhetorical question, but at the same time, how many of these evil mass shooters are actually buying 5.56 specific ammo?
Yeah.
Hey, whenever I go buy ammo for my AR-15, rarely is it 5.56. I specifically have to hunt down 5.56.
Well, Aaron, I think to your point is they're buying whatever ammo fits into their AR or whatever pattern rifle that shoots 223 or 5.56. They aren't looking for Lake City specifically. Just for, and here's the thing, that is the point, is there's so much of that on the market. It's very possible that folks are gonna, even the psychopaths out there are gonna gain access to that. Again, it doesn't prevent anything. It doesn't, there's a lot better preventive measures when it comes to these mass shootings that they don't want to face. They'd rather try to, of course, try to take the weapons away, which can't completely be done. Limit the source of ammo for civilians. When we know what the real answers are, that's hardening those structures, making sure that folks can be armed in those facilities or around those structures, and let it be known, and preferably concealed carry in those
Yeah.
facilities and those locations, those schools, hardening doors, controlling ingress and egress, all that shit that we talk about all ad nauseum. So, but they're not interested in any of that. So,
Yeah.
well, man, I say we call it an evening and let's go hang out with their wives and you on your side, your kids. I'm gonna go hang out with my pug.
Awesome. Well,
Hug on him.
tell Brody, Uncle Aaron, Mrs. Eamon. Can't wait to see him again soon.
Sure will, buddy.
Well, hey, good night. Tell Jenna hi for me and I love her, and you guys have a good evening.
You tell the same to Becky and your kids, okay?
All right,
to my nephews I'm missing.
I will.
All right.
Take it easy.
Bye.